back to my channel. Happy holidays. This is one of the first videos that I'm going to be posting for my happy holidays, where I'm uploading a new video every single day up until Christmas time. The video that we're going to be talking about today is my winter TBR. So I did film this one a couple of weeks ago, and I just wanted to pop on here and do a quick little disclaimer that I was just getting over a cold in this video and I feel as though my energy is quite low. So I just wanted to like pop on here and be like, the video does pick up a little bit at the end. My energy like increases a little bit at the end, but as I was editing it, I was thinking like, man, people are gonna be like, what is wrong with her? So I just wanted to let you know I was getting over a cold. I really wasn't feeling very well when I was filming this video, but I wanted to get this out for you. So anyways, without further ado, let's just get back on into the video. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today, as you can see, we are in a different location. We are in my bedroom, and this is where I keep my TBR cart, and that is my cat Willow. So I wanted to change locations a little bit because first of all, my TBR cart is in here, so it's just easier. But second of all, I wanted to talk a little bit about my TBRs going forward. So what I've been finding is doing monthly TBRs, I'm such a mood reader, and it's lots of times I end up listening to more audiobooks than I think that I will, and I read less physical books than I think that I will. So I oftentimes put together a whole TBR of books that I want to physically read, and it's like 6 or 7 books, but I don't get through that many in a month. Usually on the books that I physically read, I get through maybe 3 a month, and the rest that are books that I'm listening to are audiobooks. So I've just been finding that, you know, I'm doing a TBR every month, and I'm not actually reading what I set out to read. So I wanted to try and maybe shift to a more seasonal TBR, which means obviously it's going to be a lot longer. I'm going to have a lot more books for the season, especially I'm in Canada. So our winter season lasts for like half the year. It's usually about 6 months. Starts in basically end of October and goes until May, June. So yeah, so we have a long winter. So I wanted to go ahead and fill out my TBR with books that I would like to get through this winter. So without further ado, let's just get right on into it. And these are the books that I'm wanting to read this season. So the first book that we're going to talk about is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. This is one that I picked up around Halloween time, and I was really, really excited to get to it. And unfortunately, I just never got the time to get to it. But basically, this is a witchy read, and it is about a town that is surrounded by a forest, and in the forest lives a witch. And this town has this kind of superstition that if they sacrifice an infant to this witch every year, that the witch will leave them alone and they won't go through any bad luck or anything like that. But little do they know, in reality, the witch is actually really nice, and every year she gets this baby and she raises it as though it's her own, and she takes care of it because these people are just stranding this infant there. So one year she gets this baby and she accidentally feeds it moonlight, and which alters the child, obviously, as you can imagine, and the child becomes magical. So that sounds really cool. So next is the second installment from Stephanie Garber for the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. So this is The Ballad of Never After, which is a spin-off of the series Caraval. So if you read Caraval, which is like basically a magical carnival, this is a spin-off of one of the characters, Jax, and Evangeline Fox, who kind of coming into her own sort of magic. And this is the second book in that trilogy. I loved the Caraval trilogy, so I'm not, so far after the first book of this trilogy, I'm not 100%, I'm not liking it as much as I like Caraval, but it is definitely good, and I definitely want to keep up with it, so I've got to read this one next. Next is Ace of Spades by Farida Abikimidi. I should probably be searching how to pronounce these names before I make these videos, so I apologize. But it's Ace of Spades, and this one is about 2 characters that are selected to be part of the elite school senior prefects. And shortly after the announcement is made, someone who goes by the name Aces begins sending anonymous text messages to reveal secrets about the 2 of them that can turn their world upside down. That sounds very interesting. Next is Grave Surprise by Charlene Harris, and this is about a little boy who was struck by lightning and inherits the ability to find dead people. So he is helping work with law enforcement and also being studied because now has this amazing ability. This one's been on my TBR for forever, and it is a middle grade book, which I like reading middle grade sometimes. Next is a thriller by Katie Lowe called The Furies. On the grounds of Elm Hollow Academy, a girl is found dead. She's posed on a swing on her boarding school's property, dressed in all white, with no known cause of death. But there are girls who know the truth and who will never forget what happened. 1 year earlier, a new student, Violet, steps on the campus. Desperate to fit in, she soon finds herself invited to an advanced study group, led by her alluring and mysterious art teacher. There, she falls in with 3 girls who comprise the school's most elusive in crowd, and they delve into the school's long-buried grim history of violence and untapped power. The more their teacher tries to warn the girls off the topic, the more they are drawn to it, and the possibility that they can harness the power for themselves. As the girls' actions take a turn for the darker, Violet begins to wonder how far her new friends will go to protect one another or to destroy one another. So next we have another thriller called The Stranger in Our Home by Sophie Draper, and this one is about a woman that goes back to her childhood home after her stepmother has died, and we become aware that she and her stepmother never really got along, and her stepmother used to always kind of tease her with this fairy tale of 2 evil girls that lived in the woods around their house. However, as she's kind of cleaning up the house, it's starting to snow outside. She becomes snowed into this home, which is kind of in the middle of nowhere. And as she is cleaning out her stepmother's house, she's starting to find things that suggest that maybe this fairy tale is not actually a fairy tale and it could be true. And she's now stuck out there in this home with possibly these 2 evil girls living outside. Next is a ghost story, and that is called Eventide by Sarah Goodman. This one is a historical fiction, so it's a historical young adult historical horror. And it is basically about 2 girls whose parents pass away and they end up on an orphan train. The older girl, her younger sister, is adopted, but she is not, but she volunteers herself as a farmhand so that she can stay close to her sister. And as they are living in this new place, she starts to really feel uneasy and she feels like something is wrong with the town. And there's all these ghost stories surrounding the town, especially in regards to a specific well that is near her home. And she kind of does some investigation and some digging, and she finds out that there's some family secrets that actually belong to the town from her parents, and she's unraveling family secrets, and spooky situations, ghost stories abound in this. Next is a book called Mr. Flood's Last Resort by Jess Kidd, and this one follows our protagonist who ends up going to help this older man. She goes and stays with him for a while. He has a old mansion that is rumored to be haunted, and his son keeps trying to put him into an old folks home, but his son has relented that if he can get the house cleaned out and actually be living there like a normal functioning adult, then he can stay. So she is tasked with trying to help this man clean out his home, and as she's doing so, she's finding buried secrets. She starts to notice there are things that could be involved with a missing case of a missing schoolgirl years ago, and starts to wonder if maybe this man is not involved in that somehow. That added to the fact that the house seems to be haunted and creepy things are happening there will make for a really, really spooky read, I think. Next is The Murmurings by Carly Ann West, and I have to read you guys the synopsis for this one because it's really spooky. The faucet drips, the rhythm is steady, and soon my heart begins to beat in time with it. Then there's nothing. It's as if all sound is pulled from the bathroom with the intake of a breath. After a moment, sound returns. Murmuring. It's so close, yet I can't make out the words. I try to tell myself that the murmuring isn't getting louder, more insistent. And I tell myself it's not happening more frequently. And mostly, I tell myself that I didn't see the mirror start to ripple where my face was, as if something was behind the glass trying to get out. This one has been on my TBR for a while now, and I just haven't gotten the time to get around to it, but it sounds so spooky. I really wanted to read it around Halloween. You guys, I'm just kicking up dust here. Every time I'm removing a book, I am just like kicking up dust everywhere, and it's making me realize how much I need to dust in this room, and it's really gross. But anyways, next is going to be a book that might surprise you, and this is the new Stephen King called Fairy Tale. And I typically don't read a lot of Stephen King. I don't really like his writing style, but this one sounds really good. It sounds like something I'm really going to be interested in. Basically, It is about a high school boy, and something about the dog. Ends up meeting this dog and the dog's master, and he gets really close to them. And eventually the dog's master ends up dying, and in his home, this guy finds a portal to another world. So this one sounds really interesting. I'm really interested in fantasy by Stephen King. I don't think I've read any fantasy by Stephen King. I've only read horror, and I haven't liked his writing style in horror. So I'm interested to see if maybe reading a different genre will produce a different effect. Maybe I'll like his fantasy writing better. I don't know, but I'm interested to see that one. Next we have Moonflower Murders, and that is by Anthony Horowitz. This is the second. This is the follow-up to Magpie Murders. So this almost reminds me of, I read Magpie Murders and I really liked it. It reminded me of almost like an Agatha Christie style mystery. So we have this, I don't want to read the synopsis of this one. All right, guys, sorry if my angle changed or whatever, but my memory card was full. And there's Willow again. So this one, I don't want to give too much away from this one because it is a continuation off of the first book. But basically, it's like an old style mystery, murder mystery book. And I really enjoyed it. It just gave me like really nostalgic vibes for kind of an older, different time. So next is a new series by Carrie Maniscalco, and that is Kingdom of the Wicked. So I am really enjoying her Stalking Jack the Ripper series, so I just wanted to pick up the next series that she was writing. So I don't even actually know a whole lot about this one. I just know that I love the other series I'm reading, so I'm definitely going to give more of her writing a try. But kind of the blurb about this book says, 2 sisters, 1 brutal murder, a quest for vengeance that will unleash hell itself, and an intoxicating romance. So I can't be mad at that. And also it has, look at this, it has a really cool map. I don't know. I think she might become one of my new favorite authors. So I want to pick up more by her. Okay, so next is by Victoria Schwab, and that is This Savage Song, which is the first book in a duology. And it says, Kate Harker wants to be as ruthless as her father, to prove she's worthy to stand beside him and lead their city. August Flynn wants to be human, but he isn't. He's a monster, one that can steal souls with a song. You guys, the dust in here, I seriously, I can't even explain to you. Like, I should just go and get my vacuum and just dust it up really quickly, but honestly, my baby's sleeping in the room next door, and I just don't want to wake him up, because this is my only time to film when he's sleeping. So I'm going to deal with it, but I just want you to know you're probably seeing it because it's a lot. And yeah, it's making me like, oh. Anyways. Their city is divided. Their city is crumbling. Kate and August are the only 2 who sees both sides. The only 2 who could do something. But how do you decide whether to be a hero or a villain, and when it's hard to tell which is which? So next is a fun kind of read, and that is The Babysitter's Coven by Kate Williams. And this one is basically about a babysitting club, and the babysitters end up finding out that they have supernatural powers and are actually witches. So this one sounds really fun, kind of like a Sabrina the Teenage Witch sort of vibe. And once again, I wanted to read this around Halloween time because it seems like a really fun Halloween read. But we'll get to it here this winter, let's hope. Next is Within These Wicked Walls by Lauren Blackwood. And this one is basically about a girl who is a Datera, who is an exorcist, hired to cleanse households of the evil eye. And she basically she was kicked out of the program before her mentor kicked her out of the program before she could get her license. So now she just has to find a job that's willing to hire her without the actual license. And she ends up working for somebody who has sent tons of these other Dateras like running away, who is very, very difficult to work with. And she starts to find out some secrets about him, and she's trying to exorcise him and his home. But also she ends up starting to fall for him as well. So a little bit of romance in there as well, which is not something I typically read, but maybe I might like in midst of a spooky exorcism book. I don't know. Next is The Forgotten Book by Myth Child Glacier. And this one is the follow-up book to The Book Jumper. So The Book Jumper was a book about a girl who realizes that she can literally jump into books. So as she's reading a book, she can jump into it and be there surrounded, like actually in the story, a part of the story, which is such a cool premise for a book. Unfortunately, I didn't really like the first one a whole lot. I thought that was such a good idea for a book. It could have been executed a little better. But I am willing to give it another chance, so I'm going to pick up the second one and see if it's any better than the first, and maybe it can kind of right some wrongs that the first one did. I don't know, but hopefully it does. So the next book is the first in a new series. It's called Jacoby by William Ritter. And this one kind of reminds me a little bit of the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. I don't know, so we'll see. Newly arrived in New Fiddleham, New England in 1892 and in need of a job, Abigail Rook is hired by R.F. Jacoby, an investigator of the unexplained with a keen eye for the extraordinary, including the ability to see supernatural beings. On her first day, Abigail finds herself in the midst of a thrilling case. A serial killer is on the loose. Jacoby is certain the foul deeds are at work, and the work of a kind of creature whose very existence local authorities, with the exception of a handsome young detective named Charlie Kane, seem adamant to deny. So I wonder if it's going to be, like Jack the Ripper solving murder. I don't know. So next is the third Pendragon book, and I read the first two Pendragon books a while ago, and this has been on my TBR ever since. But this is basically about, it's by DJ McHale, and it is about a boy who is basically responsible for saving the world. So there's multiple universes in the world, and he ends up having to kind of time jump into different universes to protect it from being overruled, I guess. So he's in tons of different worlds. I think in the first one he was in kind of a caveman sort of world. The second one he was in a world that took place underwater. And it looks like in this third one that he is in he's in New York City 1937. And so something's going to happen there that's going to be the cause of the end of the world, and so he has to fix that. This one seems really fun and not like something I would typically read, and that is Daughter of the Pirate King by Tricia Levenseller. Sent on a mission to retrieve an ancient hidden map, the key to a legendary treasure trove, 17-year-old pirate captain Alosa deliberately allows herself to be captured by her enemies, giving her the perfect opportunity to search their ship. More than a match for the ruthless pirate crew, Alosa has only one thing standing in between her and the map, her captor, the unexpectedly clever and unfairly attractive first mate Raiden. But not to worry, for Alosa has a few tricks up her sleeve, and no lone pirate can stop the daughter of the Pirate King. So I don't think I've ever read a pirate book before, but it sounds like it's going to be full of adventure and really fun, and almost something like maybe that my younger self would have liked to read when I was a kid and never did. You guys, I'm getting over being sick. I don't know if you can tell in my voice, but man, we have had just like cold after cold, flu after flu going through my house. It has been insane. That's why I've been uploading a little bit less lately, because we all just keep getting sick, and it's been tough around here. But anyway, next is Haunting the Deep by Adriana Mather, and this is also the second book. And the first one was How to Hang a Witch. So in the first one, basically, our protagonist Samantha, she moves to Salem, Massachusetts, and she ends up finding out that her ancestors are the people that were burning witches at the stake. And so she is kind of pitted up against the popular girls in school who are whose ancestors are the women who are burned at the stake. So obviously, as you can imagine, these girls do not like her. And she ends up being able to see ghosts, and there's some, in the first one there was basically it was basically the witch trials happening all over again, just in a different sort of spin on it, that she has to stop. But she had to kind of find a way to work with these other girls in order to stop it, with the help of some ghosties. And this is the second book in this series, so I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen in this one, but something else must be going on, and she's back to save some more lives, I guess. Okay, so next is the fourth installment from the Miss Peregrine series. So I originally read the Miss Peregrine series when they first came out, like everyone else, and I really enjoyed them a lot, and that was when they were going to just be a trilogy. And then he just started putting out more and more books, and I've never actually caught up. And by this time, I think I'm going to need to reread, or at least maybe listen to the first three again, because I can't really remember. I know the gist of it, but not enough to feel comfortable just going into the fourth book without rereading the first books. So that's what has kept me. I've had this since it came out, and I think I pre-ordered it, in fact, and it's been sitting here ever since. And it came out when? A long time ago. We're talking years ago already, I think. 2018. So it's been sitting here ever since, just because I know that I have to reread those other ones, and I don't have time for that, because who has time to reread books when you have so many on your TBR? Like, it's just insane. Next is Shadow House by Dan Poblocki, and I think Shadow House is the series. This is the first in the series. This one's called The Gathering. Look at how creepy that is. I think this is a YA. Some houses are more than just haunted. They're hungry. Dash, Dylan, Poppy, Marcus, and Azumi don't know this at first. They think that they've been summoned to Shadow House for innocent reasons. But there's nothing innocent about Shadow House. Something within its walls is wickedly wrong. Nothing and nobody can be trusted. Hallways move, doors vanish, ghosts appear, children disappear, and the way out, that's disappeared too. So I think this one is actually maybe it's not YA, maybe this one is more of a middle grade? I'm not sure. Next is Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo, and this is the second in a duology of Six of Crows. So Six of Crows is the first book, this is the second, and the gang is back basically to finish what they started. So our gang, Kaz and friends, they are a group of thieves that come together to pull off an impossible heist, and they, at the end of the first book, got themselves into a very tricky situation, left on a cliffhanger, and this is the follow-up book to that. Next is Sea Witch by Sarah Henning, and this is a retelling of The Little Mermaid, but it is through the eyes of the villain. So that sounds really interesting. That sounds really interesting. I'm always interested in seeing the other side, like the different perspective of a story like that. So this one is a book that I typically wouldn't read, but I think just sounds so fun, and I also really love the cover, and that is Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. And this one basically is about a girl who, I don't know if it's a podcast that she runs or if it's a blog. Yeah, I think she runs a blog, and in person she's really, really shy, and online she has, it's a web comic. And basically this person ends up moving to her school, who writes the #1 fan fiction from her blog. And so she kind of gets to know him, and at first he thinks that she's just another fan, and he doesn't know that she's actually the owner of this blog. And she kind of starts to fall for him, and yeah, this one seems like definitely not something I typically read, but I need to branch out a little bit sometimes, right? So next is Traveler's Rest by Keith Lee Morris, and this is one of the books that I did a long time ago. I did a try a chapter tag because I was thinking about possibly unhauling this book, and I read the first chapter and immediately was hooked, so I decided to keep it and put it on my TBR. And it's basically about a family who is going on a road trip, and they end up caught in a snowstorm, and they go to this hotel for a rest stop, and the hotel is haunted. So weird things start happening, they get separated, and it's very, very spooky. Next we have Clockwork Angel, and this is the spin-off of the Shadowhunters series by Cassandra Clare. So I finished, you guys will see in my next wrap-up, but I finished the Shadowhunters series, and so this is the next spin-off, which I have the books already because I bought them from Value Village, and yeah, so we'll see if this one's any good. The other ones, like the Shadowhunters series, I ended up rating them all a 3, so they were just kind of like meh, kind of run of the mill, you know, nothing too extraordinary about them. But I do notice Cassandra Clare's writing improving towards the ends of the books, so maybe this one will be even better, I don't know. I'm not sure if I think we're following different characters. Gosh, my camera, my timer went off. I'm not used to like filming this long of a video for my TBRs. Usually I pick like 6 books and that's my TBR video, but this is a long TBR video. Anyways, so that was Cassandra Clare. Next we have a book from Lisa Jewell, and that is The Family Upstairs. Soon after her birthday, Libby Jones returns home from work to find the letter she's been waiting for 25 years. She rips it open with one driving thought: I am finally going to know who I am. She learns not only the identity of her birth parents, but also that she is the sole inheritor of their abandoned mansion in the banks of the Thames. Everything in Libby's life is about to change, but what she can't possibly know is that others have been waiting for this day as well. And she is on a collision course to meet them in the family upstairs. So I don't know if that's, they're going to be like out to kill her or what's going on after that. It's supposed to be a thriller, so. That should be good. Next is Scythe by Neil Shusterman, and this is basically, it's the first in a trilogy, and it is about a world where people no longer die. So like cancer has been conquered, all sorts of natural, there's no more natural diseases that, you know, take people out, and so people just live forever. So there has to be like a manufactured death. So there are people that are appointed to be scythes, and they have to go around and take people's lives. They also have to like orchestrate, you know, disasters and stuff like that, because there's no more, I guess there's no more natural disasters. There's no more like, you know, like airplane crashes or, you know, horrible tragedies. And there's none of that. So it all has to be orchestrated. So that sounds like a really interesting world. Next is the third installment of the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, and that is Escaping from Houdini. So we're going to continue to follow our main characters, who is Audrey Rose and Thomas Cresswell, as they've already solved 2 murders now, to kind of, they did Stalking Jack the Ripper as well. So they solved the Jack the Ripper murders, and they also solved some Dracula murders. So something's going to be going on with Houdini next. Okay, next is a book by Kate Moss called Labyrinth. And she wrote another book that I really, really enjoyed. I can't remember what it was called. Yeah, I can't remember. It's not on here either, so she must have written the other one after this. But so I just picked this up because I really enjoyed her first book. But it says, July 1209, in Carcassonne, a young girl is given a book said to contain the secret of the true Grail. Although Elias cannot understand the strange symbols hidden within, she knows that her destiny lies in protecting the secret of the labyrinth, a secret that stretches back thousands of years to ancient Egypt. July 2005, Alice Tanner stumbles upon 2 skeletons during an archaeological dig outside of Carcassonne. Stepping into the tomb, Alice sets in motion a terrifying sequence of events that will lead her to realize that her destiny is inextricably tied up with the fate of the Cathars 800 years before. Next, we have The Changeling by Delia Sherman. As I watched, the pool kind of sucked itself and swirled around and turned into an old boogie woman. She was short and onion-shaped from the layers and layers of ratty wet skirts and shawls she had on. Her nails were long and black, and her thin gray hair dripped over her head and shoulders like a string mop. She had a round, pale face and round, muddy eyes and a smile like a row of green knives. That, and the way she was looking at me as if I were a double-dipped chocolate ice cream cone, told me that she rode the Wild Hunt. Hello there, dear. You can call me Peg Powler. I was at your changing. You were too little to remember me, but I remember you. If memory serves, are called Neef. My first thought was that when Astrus found out I'd been talking to Peg Powler of the Wild Hunt, she was going to kill me, or at least put me to sleep for 100 years. My second thought was that if I could get myself out of this, she'd never have to know. Next is Harper Lee's Go Set a Watchman, and once again, this one has been on my TBR for forever. It is, I guess, the sequel or prequel or second book of To Kill a Mockingbird. So I've had this once again for years. So next is a historical fiction, and it is also another witchy read called The Witch's Daughter by Paula Braxton. In the spring of 1628, the witchfinder of Wessex finds himself a true witch. As Bess Hawksmith watches her mother swing from the hanging tree, she knows that only one man can save her from the same fate, the warlock Gideon Masters. Secluded at his cottage, Gideon instructs Bess, awakening formidable power she didn't know she had. She couldn't have foreseen that even now, centuries later, he would be hunting her across time, determined to claim payment for saving her life. In present-day England, Elizabeth has built a quiet life. She has spent the centuries in solitude, surviving plagues, wars, and the heartbreaks that comes with immortality. Her loneliness comes to an abrupt end when she is befriended by a teenage girl called Tegan. Against her better judgment, Elizabeth opens her heart to Tegan, but will she be able to stand against Gideon, who will stop at nothing to reclaim her soul, in order to protect the girl who has become the daughter she never had? So next is a spooky read from Riley Sager, and that is called Home Before Dark. And it is about a family who 25 years ago moves into a haunted house, and after only a couple of weeks there, move out terrified. They were never able to sell the place, and she ends up inheriting the mansion once her parents pass away. When she lived there with them, she was too little to remember it, and she doesn't believe in it. She thinks it's all just a bunch of baloney, so she moves back into this mansion, and of course, creepy things start to happen again. Next is The Haunted by Bentley Little. Julian and Claire Perry and their 2 children, Megan and James, have just made the move to a bigger, nicer home in their city's historic district. But something isn't right. The neighbors seem reluctant to visit. Claire can't shake the feeling that someone is watching her. Megan receives increasingly menacing and obscene texts, and James is having terrible dreams. No wonder, considering what he's seen in the corner of the basement, staring at him and shuffling closer ever so slowly. Pity no one warned them about the house. Now it's too late, because the darkness at the bottom of the stairs is rising. How creepy does that sound? And also look at how creepy that cover is. Oh my gosh. It's like horror or thriller better. The last book that we're going to talk about is Lost in Neverwoods, and that is by Aiden Thomas. And the synopsis for this one says, Wendy's heart thudded violently in her throat. Cold sweat beaded on her skin. Her nails bit into her palms. Harsh, ragged breaths billowed white before her. The trembling in her spine began to awake. At the base of the great tree, the roots formed a small opening like an entrance to a dark cage. Rotten leaves brushed past the gaping mouth, and just below the sound of their ruffling, Wendy heard quiet voices murmur. She knew this place. Everything in her screamed for her to run. Wendy needed to get out of there. She needed to get away from this tree. But it was like she had no control of her body, because suddenly she was moving toward it. The hushed whispers became steadily louder as she stepped closer, one foot after another. They were children's voices. That's creepy. All right, you guys, so that wraps up the books that I'm hoping to get through this winter. So in the next few months, wish me luck. I need to pick up with my reading. Once right now, trade shows, because for my little book business, which is called Holly's Enchanted Books, which is linked in the description below. I have an Etsy site where I do blind date with a book and homemade bookmarks as well. But I do a lot of trade shows this time of year, because what I sell makes really good Christmas gifts. And so I've just been so busy with that. But once Christmas is over, that will start to die down a little bit, and I can hopefully get to a little bit more reading. So wish me luck on these. Let me know which ones I should read first, which ones you like the best, which ones you've read, which ones you haven't, what you're reading this winter, whatever.